I'm watching you in the chat now. We've got, let me see, I'm CJ Llewellyn. I'm thrilled to be here. Hold on, I'm going to use the chat as my balancing act here. We've got Texas, Pacific Northwest. We've got England going on here. Let's see what else. Hi, guys. Okay. So I have a half hour to develop and talk about some really complicated things that are so important for us. So I'm going to get into this. I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to show you a little graphic. I'm going to get into what the vagus nerve does for us. I know sometimes it probably feels like it works against us, but it actually can work for us. And of course, how it aligns with the chakras. I'm also kind of guessing that a lot of you are familiar with chakras and potentially yoga, and you've been working the energy in your system. So let's go a little further inward. So hold on a minute, because I am not technologically adept here. I'm going to try to show you a picture of the vagus nerve. So give me a second. Let's see, share something. Hold on. We're going to share this for a minute. And I'm going to break it down. It's not pretty, but I'm going to break this down for a second. I call her Sheila. I've mentioned this in my book. Sheila is hanging out in the back of my door here as well. So this is actually a 16th century lithograph pressing. And to this day, I feel like it's the best image of what the vagus nerve looks like in our system. So we have 3 states in our vagus nerve. I know it looks like a lot more in this wandering nerve. These 3 states help us basically stay alive, help us engage in the world in all sorts of wonderful and sometimes complicated ways. So I wanted to show you, look up near the face. Do you see all the nerves that are going up into the jaw, into the eyes? I don't know if you can really see them in there. Down into the throat, into the heart. That is ventral vagal activity. That's the ventral portion of the vagus. That state of the vagus nerve is calm. That is what we like to get to. We like to get to the safe. We like to get to the calm. I'll break that down more in a minute. The middle section is the sympathetic. That's the mobilization. That's the state of mobilization. That's the, do we get out of here and run? Do we fight? What do we do here? Are we safe? And then you see in the back, think of dorsal. They refer to this as the dorsal vagal branch of the vagus nerve. Think of that as dorsal as in like the dorsal fin, you know, the back of a dolphin or a shark. The dorsal vagal represents immobilization. So the dorsal vagal is what shuts us down when all other opportunities for our nervous system have run out of choices, and it'll shut us down. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to show you just kind of, I don't know if even you can see the way that I'm moving my mouse here, but just kind of keep that in mind. And I'm going to come back in with you guys. And I think there's a little bit of a delay. So there we go. Okay. Sorry, that was my screen. So, okay. Oh, the doc showed you this. I love this. Thanks, Shannon. So the doctor's already showed her this. So what's happening with the whole polyvagal theory is it's starting to get more mainstream. Really quickly, as a trauma therapist, I have been watching the vagus nerve and studying and learning about the vagus nerve as I've helped people process out their trauma for years using body-mind modalities, mostly EMDR, IFS, and energy psychology. So I'm supposed to listen and be attuned, and then I'm supposed to help my clients understand that and get attuned to their own system as well. So let's break this down a little bit. As we were just talking about, ventral vagal, up in here, through the eyes, through the throat, through the heart. The ventral vagal portion of the vagus nerve is what helps us, I'm taking a breath right now, helps us to breathe. And when we breathe, it's the autonomic portion of our nervous system and helps to manage the autonomic portion. Because if we didn't have ventral vagal activity, our heart rate would be going a mile a minute. But it's this portion of the nervous system that allows us to slow down. As I just did that, my heart rate just went down. I could feel it going down. So This is where we want to be because this is where we end up feeling the safest and engaging most with people. When we are around people we care about, we love, we feel safe with, not everybody we care about is safe, but when we are around those people that we want to connect with, we find ourselves neurobiologically going into this vagus nerve, into the ventral vagal portion of the nerve, because we're safe enough to look at each other. We hear each other differently. We're hearing what each other are saying. Our voice, right? My voice is in a mid-range right now. It's safe. It's not super low. It's not super high. I don't want to screech here. It's Saturday morning. So this is the portion of what keeps us safe, because here's one of the ways that this keeps us safe. How this keeps us safe is that as mammals, we need each other. I know we like to think that we're all independent and we can be islands. When we've had people that have hurt us, people that we've loved hurt us, we have a tendency to want to withdraw. But if we can find safety with other human beings, we are actually more safe, because we need to be connected as humans. So when I talk about this portion of the vagus nerve, this branch of the vagus nerve, I'm also talking about the heart chakra, right? The Coeur de Lion here, talking about the throat chakra, talking about the third eye and the crown. This is where these align. If you are feeling unsafe, are there moments when you just utilize your heart chakra, breathing in, meditating, pulling in the energy, pulling the attention to this energy, maybe stretching it out, right? Doing one of these. This feels really good, just stretching it out. The heart chakra, to me, from what I can see, it just seems to be an extension of ventral vagal nervous activity, the nerves within this area of our body. Throat chakra, I talk about this a lot more in the book, I think is a lot more complicated than what we think it is. I shared this story in the book, and I'll share it now because it's kind of cool in regards to this is a lot more going on up here. Our throat chakra is that one chakra in our system that can pierce another person, right? We can scream, we can shout, we can say awful things, or we can say calm, loving, supportive things in calm, loving, mid-range voices, tones of voices. By the way, this is called, in polyvagal terms, this is called prosody in here. So this is a very powerful chakra. And I saw a professor of mine once, she was talking, it was at the side of the room, this was 15, 18 years ago. I saw this blue coming up and from her neck, going up into her mouth and around her ears and coming back down. It's like, what is this? Aren't we supposed to have these lovely little circles in here? So it really stumped me for, over a decade. Why was it doing this? Why was it flowing like this? What was happening, I believe, now that I really have a foundation in polyvagal theory and have been working deeply with trauma for quite some time, I think that we have we have actually two branches of the vagus nerve in through here that connect to our mid-ear, that connect to our ear. I think that the energy through our throat chakra comes up through these. Now, I just did a presentation at the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology, and I quoted Donna Eden had talked about this in one of her these channels in here when she was doing energy work. That just totally makes sense, because this is where our vagus nerve, the bilateral portions of our vagus nerve are. So think about what feels safe for you. Think about how you actually, it's not just what's safe for us, how we can project safety to others, right? With our tone of voice. This matters. This matters in here. There's a lot of energy coming out of this region. There's a lot of energy coming up into our ears. I'm going to stay with this branch for a minute. So within this branch, let's say we're all just sitting here having coffee. Of course, I'm sitting here looking at myself, but I'm looking at some really, really cool. I'll look at those later. I'll look at your comments later. when we're sitting there having coffee with one of our close friends that we just can't wait to hear from and can't wait to catch up with, we are listening differently. We are listening from that portion of our middle ear. Our ears are constricted because we can hear them specifically. When we get nervous, when we get into sympathetic, when we are uncertain, we start listening more for environmental cues. Our ears will start changing. Our ears will open up and we will start being more aware of sounds around us. So notice that. So I noticed this today. I was a little nervous about my technology. So my partner was helping me out and he was also trying to tell me something. I'm like, I can't hear you right now. This is polyvagal. This is my vagus nerve. I need to focus on this. I need to get on here. I'm, really focused. I know I'm sympathetic. I'm also, ventral vagal, but I need to focus on this. I can't hear your story right now. I'm listening for environmental cues. So notice that. Or do you remember a time when you were not able to listen to what somebody was telling you because you were listening to environmental sounds? That means that you were probably, your neuroception, I'll explain that one in a minute. Your neuroception was getting probably more into sympathetic. Neuroception is a term. I'm trying not to throw too many science terms at you because I want this to be an experiential opportunity. But neuroception is about how our nervous system, how our vagus nerve reads cues before our brain, before a meaning is even made about what those cues are. That's why I was this morning, great example. It's like I was aware of my neuroception because I do this all the time. But we may not be, and when we're nervous and we can't listen to what someone's saying to us because we're nervous, who knows what kind of argument might start if that other person's thinking you're not listening to them. So this is a way to really manage and to be aware. Within sympathetic, that mobilization, it's not all bad. We talk about fight, flight a lot because that's what gets us out of danger. That's what helps us to attune to where we are. What's our new environment that we just walked into telling us? Are we safe? Are we not safe? Is it a nice, cozy, calm room? Or are there a lot of noises and people in there that do not feel safe to us? Our biology naturally will drop down into sympathetic. As we said, we will listen to things differently as well. So being able to know what your neuroception naturally does, really important. Mobilization is not always bad. Think of kids. They're running around. They are happy. They can't stop moving. They are moving all the time. They're mobilizing that branch of their vagus nerve. They're also mobilizing a lot of ventral vagal when they're safe playing. We need that too, by the way. Just as adults, we have a tendency just to sit still, I think, a little too much. So getting out there and working through some stuff in a movement sort of way. Yoga is fantastic for this. I'm a great fan of walking, and here's why. As we're walking, we are creating bilateral stimulation for ourselves. We have two branches of this vagus nerve. I know I'm showing you a sideways view of one, but we have a bilateral vagus nerve. One of the reasons that I believe that EMDR works so well in these situations, utilizing moving trauma through the system, is because it incorporates bilateral stimulation. When we are doing eye movement, REM sleep, I do this because in the old days, this is what EMDR looked like. It was follow my hand. Now we have all sorts of ways to stimulate bilateral, to create bilateral stimulation that are handheld devices. When our eyes move back and forth in the same way REM sleep does when we're in our dream state, which is, by the way, how EMDR came to be, was that curious question. If we're going back and forth with our eyes in our sleep and suddenly figuring things out, wonder what this is like if we're awake. Francine Shapiro developed this. She just passed away about 2 years ago. She developed this protocol that has really saved a lot of lives. Anyway, when our eyes move back and forth, the ocular nerves connected to the vagus nerve in the brain are stimulating blood flow, and it's starting to stimulate things in the vagus nerve. So this whole bilateral movement, fantastic. When you think about or when you're nervous, do you want to just go for a walk? Or do you resist going for a walk when maybe you should? Or even a run. Sometimes runners. I'm a cyclist. I love getting on my bike and just kind of doing one of these things. So think of how you can employ bilateral stimulation in whatever your situation is, whatever mobility you need in the moment to help manage, right? That state. A lot of people are talking about anxiety, right? Anxiety is a little bit of a misfire here because it's not an emotion. It's your neurobiology saying, are we safe? What are we doing here? The brain is sending cues down to the vagus nerve. And sometimes the brain gets things wrong, especially if we've had early miscues from early childhood trauma. We're not sure. It's hard to discern whether certain situations are safe. The brain will start sending miscues down sometimes, or this brain is actually sending meaning, is what I should say, down into the central nervous system. And if those are a little uncertain, you're going to feel that anxiety. So being able to mobilize to manage that is very important. There's nothing, you shouldn't be sitting still if you're feeling that portion of your vagus nerve getting stimulated. If sympathetic starts engaging, move it. Go move it. Even if it's just yoga, even if it's stretching, whatever it is, move your body. It's not bad. It's not always bad to be in the mobilization experience of your vagus nerve. Let's talk a little bit about immobilization. That's when you have had such a stressful day. It's like, I can't function anymore. There are times when we are in fight or flight for so long that our body just can't stay in that high cortisol pump, heart racing, tense muscles. It finally starts to give way into more immobilized states to conserve energy. Sometimes it happens at inconvenient moments. I use a conversation that I had with a vet. This kid was amazing. He was not even 21, and he had already served, I think in Iraq twice. And he was saying he became really interested in neurobiology and why things were happening to him. So he's becoming very interested in observing his own central nervous system and trying to develop language around it. And we got talking, and he said, I was so embarrassed because the first time I was on the front lines and that we're rushing in, to danger, I peed my pants. And I was like, that's just dorsal vagal. You're doing exactly the opposite of what your central nervous system wants you to do. It wants you to run. It wants to keep you safe. You're running into danger because that's how you were trained. But your dorsal vagal nerve shut you down. It can also bind us up, by the way. So that, you hear that a lot. You hear it a lot from vets. And of course, that the whole culture of, you got to suck it up, you got to get going, you got to fight this off. It starts sending some mixed signals when all that really is, all it is, it's just dorsal vagal. It's just your central nervous system trying to help you, keep you safe. That's the key to your nervous system. So how this aligns, I want to talk a little bit about touching. You can't see, I'm touching my solar plexus, and my sacral, and my root chakra. This is how I've seen this work out in my trauma processing with my clients. There's a lot of attachment messaging that goes on in our root chakra, right? Our safety chakras. Are we connected to the earth chakras? Our sacral chakra. This is attachment. It's not love. This is love, right? This is attachment. Sometimes we get these two confused because as we're young, we're attaching to our caretakers, our parents. There is love there, but there's also a safety portion in our body of, am I getting my needs met? There's a safety component to the sacral chakra with attachment. And if we've had mixed messages growing up, we have some funkified experiences going on in that sacral chakra, which also attaches to sympathetic nervous, the sympathetic nervous portion of the vagus nerve. And also the solar plexus. as I see this, I was seeing a lot of identity going on as we were processing through people's traumas. So they were all experiencing these a little differently, but they all had similar themes of safety, connection, and identity. So I take the liberty, I always kind of apologize to the yogis over the last several thousand years. I take the liberty of calling them the essential chakras because they are so essential to who we are as humans. Our whole component of us as humans is to keep ourselves safe. We are, it's very overused, but it is the most succinct, I think, description of what spirituality is. We are spiritual beings having human connection, but we can't have the spiritual experience if we are not in our bodies. Our bodies are designed to keep us on this earth, keep us safe, managing what we've got going on in our world. And sometimes they misfire, but they misfire only because they've had set patterns, informational patterns set potentially early on about what safety looks like, what love, what safety, what attachment looks like. Trauma processing is about helping you out of the past so that you can stay centered and safe in your body to know what present information is in front of you. Trauma is about us carrying the past with us. So we can't discern. This is probably the most basic fundamental aspect of how we experience trauma. We cannot discern if our present is our past. We cannot discern if we're safe sometimes because our central nervous system and our brain have done such an amazing job in those moments of keeping us safe. So that's what the trauma processing really does for us. And that takes, I'm coming from the view of a licensed professional counselor with all this different training. It deeply takes, I believe, inside out. I'm a Reiki master. Etheric energy is fantastic, but I feel like it represents what's going on in our central nervous system. That's my take on that. What's messaging in here? How our brain is sending signals down from the vagus nerve, no matter which branch, to the organs. By the way, the organs play very important roles in registering safety. Do you ever get a stomach ache when you get a little nervous? Our organs are holding on to information too. So we've got this up and down processing going on in our system. Honor it even when it misfires for you. And that's why sometimes it's really important just to be in the safe container with a trauma therapist to work through, EMDR. There's a couple of different modalities to work through trauma. To work through it, clean it out of your system so that you can be in the moment and discern actual safety, or be present to someone in the moment and not feel like you've got past messaging circulating through your system. Being gentle with your system is so important. Okay, I'm trying to keep track of the time here because these are very complicated, systems that we're talking about, and we're doing it, in a half hour. So what I'm going to do right now is look through and see if we get some questions here. I am seeing Karma reading The Body Keeps the Score. Yes, Body Keeps the Score changed everything for you guys. So again, it took it out of the trauma world of this knowledge base. Body Keeps the Score talks about, Bessel van der Kolk talks about, his years of research and how through his research, through Harvard research, that they were seeing how our body holds on to these messages. It's all centered in our body. This is where our spirituality is. This is where our soul resides. So sometimes our soul's trying to manage through the body, and the body is uncertain as to whether or not it's safe. This is a human condition right here. It's the conundrum. It's the dichotomy of being human. We are complex, and that's okay. We don't want to simplify this down to one little way of being. we need to be flexible with our system, and we need to develop safety within our system as well. Yeah. It's a profound book because it really hones down the information about the importance of knowing this within ourselves. Well, thank you, Runa. Runa says she'd return to therapy, you'd return to therapy if more people understood the spirituality of your biology. So I would say to you this. I just kicked the door down and got out of the closet here. I'm jumping out of the box a little bit. I'm putting this out there because I see it. But I would say whether or not it actually shows, whether or not the therapist is talking about spirituality of your biology or not, that's what they're doing, especially trauma therapists, because they're working through these modalities. They understand our system sometimes gets so locked down, we can't get past it, right? The trauma keeps us in a gate. It keeps us like a fishbowl. It keeps us where we have this wall, but we don't know we have the wall. We're kind of hitting this wall. And we're like, I can see beyond, but I can't get through. So there is a lot of spirituality going on with trauma work and trauma therapists. They may not be speaking it, but it is happening. It is evolving. Trust that. When you get into work with a therapist that you really trust, just trust that regardless of whether or not it's being put into words, there's spirituality in the room, because we're clearing out our system so that our spirit, we can make more room for what our soul wants us to do next. Let's see. Maybe time for one more question. We got like 3 minutes left. Mary, Colin, you're welcome. Thank you very much for thanking me. Yeah. Okay. Working through anxiety, real quick. Let me just give this to you. I love bilateral stimulation. So let's just, as you're sitting here, we're going to do what they talk about in EMDR terms is just a little angel hug. We're going to just tap across your arms. You can see that the hands sort of lay over our meridian. This is very energy psychology. Energy psychology tapping uses a lot of the meridian energy, but it's also creating that bilateral stimulation in our ventral vagal branch, right? Those of you who are tapping right now, just let yourself feel the experience of this. Just real slow, doesn't have to be fast. I'm probably going faster than I should. Helping me. You can feel the energy around your heart chakra too, right? You can feel that experience of ventral vagal engagement, because you all should be pretty safe. You're all in front of your computers doing cool things today in LlewelynCon. And you can feel that bilateral stimulation, that back forth. Okay, so one more minute. Leave you with that. I want to thank you very much for spending this morning with me. Think and notice throughout the day what your neuroception's doing. Allow yourself some time to get balanced. Breathing, and slow exhale. I'll leave you with that one. Slow exhale slows down your heart rate. There's been a lot of science, a lot of studies on how people in choirs have very good heart rate variability, which is the heartbeat between heartbeats. Just release a slow breath as if you're blowing into a flute, and notice that one too. All right, those are a couple of techniques, and I hope to see you guys soon. Okay, my shameless promotion, CJ Llewelyn, author. What am I on? I'm playing on TikTok, which is really fun. We got Facebook going and Instagram, and cjllewellyn.com. I'm in the middle of tinkering with a new site, but my landing page is there too. Really, really thank you for being here. Have a blessed and safe day. And I will talk